Hey guys, Bondo here. We're pouring some concrete today. Got this pole barn in the background that we're working on. It's got radiant heat in it. Spray foam under the concrete. Concrete's coming at 6:30. It's about 6:07. We're just doing some final touches. I'll show you the barn here. Stay with us. Here it is, guys. This is the barn we're pouring today. Like I said, it's got radiant heat in it. We put that in yesterday. There's gonna be an office over here, like a wall here and a wall here. So that's on its own zone. It's got water and stuff in there. Gonna be a little bathroom in there. There's gonna be a lift in here. So we got these two gigantic holes here for the lift. The homeowner dug these a little bit deep, I'd say. Probably like a foot deep, too much. Foot to 16 inches, too deep. They don't need to be that big, but we avoided them with the tubing so that we're not gonna hit the tubing when the guys put the lift in. We're kind of driving these stakes in here so that we know where they are, and then we'll pull the stakes out after and mark it. And then we put some screws along this edge here. We just drove some screws in, and then we're gonna string lines across here after the concrete dries, because we put screws here and screws here to line up where these holes are, and then we're gonna mark it so that they can find those holes for their lift. They don't end up hitting the tubing, and that's what we're doing. So because the homeowner's really concerned about hitting the tubing with the lift guys putting the lift in, hitting the tubing. So we're gonna be running 4,000 pound concrete today, guys. We got fibers in it. We will not be pulling this tubing up into the concrete. We wanna leave it down so it doesn't get damaged. We're gonna do our relief cuts probably tomorrow or Monday, because today's Saturday. So you won't see us picking the tubing up and the wire. The wire there, guys, is only to hold the tubing in place. That's all it's there for. We got, like I said, we got the fibers in here. This floor is 6 inches thick. It's got 2 inches of spray foam underneath it, so rock solid. We're gonna have to wheelbarrow this bad boy. Can't drive in here, so we're gonna wheel the whole thing pretty much, except what we could shoot through the doors. Stay tuned, guys. Smell what, mud?
Yeah.
I can hear them.
Oh, I can smell it.
You could smell it. Wow.
Smell that slump coming?
What do you think the slump is on this truckload of mud?
It's at 5 right now, so you should probably add a little bit water.
It's at a 5. It's at a 5. He can smell that mud, guys. It's at a 5. What's he backing down here?
Oh, dude, I should have seen my...
Is it a rear? He's probably got the conveyor. He's probably got the conveyor. Yeah, exactly. Here comes the mud, guys. Here it comes. I think it's a conveyor. It's gonna suck backing him in here. We were gonna wheel this, but I think the conveyor's coming, guys. Oh yeah, it is. Well, I did mention if he could bring the conveyor for the first truck, it would be nice. I could blow that back end in. 5-inch mud right here. I can smell it. Coming in hot, boys. This driveway sucks, guys. It's a long driveway. Probably a half a mile long. Stay with us. We're gonna be dumping some mud. All right, guys, we got this conveyor truck today, so we're going to, for the first 10 yards, we're gonna sneak that conveyor through this door and hit that back corner over there. That'll save us some wheelbarrowing. I kind of forgot I asked for that conveyor, but here it is. So we got all these wheelbarrows, but we're gonna do the conveyor for the first 10 and then wheel the rest with the big Brentwoods. Be careful, Sean. Sean's good though. He won't hit nothing. I got the utmost faith in this man. That's a conveyor, guys. Basically, it's a rear loader truck, and it dumps onto this conveyor belt. That conveyor spins and travels down through, and it comes out that boot at the end. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, we use this quite a bit for different things, especially footers, core fills, stuff like that. Circle T is the company that brought this truck to us, bringing us our concrete. It's 4,000 pound concrete with fibers in it, guys. Good stuff. This floor is 6 inches thick, so she's not going anywhere. Just got to get that truck in there. That thing folds out like an accordion, as you can see. And he has a remote control in his hand that controls this thing. All remote controlled, huh, Sean? Nice, nice. That's how we do it, guys. Hey guys, Bondo here. So let me tell you a story about how this customer got so mad at me over these lift posts right here that were filling up, that I actually told these customers that I would not work for them anymore. They had a lot of work for us next year. They were going to build a house, and they wanted me to do their foundation. And we were going to do Nadura foundation for them. They had a bunch of work, and they wanted us to do aprons on this barn this year also. So I just basically told them that we had such a bad experience on this small project. I considered this pretty small project. We did this radiant heat. I set up the spray foam guy for them so they could get this barn floor spray foamed, and we prepped this building, and we also put the radiant heat in, and then obviously we're pouring the floor here. So I didn't consider this that big of a project compared to a full basement. I said, we will, I just don't want to do any more work for you. I was respectful to them, but so I'll tell you what went on here with this whole lift pad situation. So when I looked at this job, there was no lift talked about, but he said he was going to put a lift in here. So we talked about that when I came back before we started to prep this job. And I said, no big deal. We can deepen the concrete a little bit where the lift goes, and we won't put the radiant tubing in there. So no big deal. And then when I showed up to do the prep work, he has a mini excavator, and he had dug these two gigantic holes. They were probably 18 inches deep, 18 to 20 inches deep, and they're 4-foot squares. And his thought process was that he wanted to make sure that these lift guys did not hit his tubing, so he made these hughes posts, or these hughes pads, and that's what he thought it needed. And I said, well, you didn't need to go so deep. And he said, yeah. He kind of forgot about the thickness of the floor. I mean, the floor is 6 inches thick already, so he probably really only needed to deepen these things about 6 to 8 inches, and he had a nice 1-foot pad underneath his lifts for these, these lift posts. It's a 2-post lift that he's putting in here, so it's only going to have 2 pads that bolt to the floor. So, when you drill those holes, he doesn't want to hit his tubing, obviously. So we started to talk a little bit more at that point about the lift pads, and he changed his mind on how he wanted them done. He said he was not a concrete guy. He told me that. He said, I'm not a concrete guy, but I want you to pour these pads separate now. He changed it. He said, I want these 2 pads poured right up to the surface of the floor, form them up, and pour them, and then finish them off, and then pour the floor around it. Then he can clearly see where these pads are. And I told him we just didn't physically have time to do that. We had concrete ordered, and I said there's just no way we're going to have time. I said besides that, there's going to be a short fee for the concrete, and you're going to have to pay extra. We're going to have to come over for a day and form them up, and then we're going to have to strip them, and we're going to have to backfill around them. And the spray foam had already been done, so we basically said we can't do that, so that's out. And he was kind of mad about that, but his wife was there and she was kind of helping out the situation. So back to the lift pad story. So like I said, his wife was kind of there. She was trying to narrate between the two of us because I was kind of getting upset, a little bit upset at him because he's trying to tell us how to do these pads. And we've done these a ton of times. And he just tells me he's not a concrete guy, but he wants these pads done like that. I pretty much was going to tell him I didn't want to do the job if we had to do those pads like that. First of all, I didn't have time. And second of all, it was going to look really bad to have these two big squares in the middle of his floor. And I told him that. I said, it's going to look horrible. And I said, we can clearly mark these pads for you, and it was not going to be a concern. I said, they're 4 foot big. We're going to stay away from it with the tubing. And he told me at that point that he doesn't care what it looks like. And then I'm like, okay, well, you got the wrong guy to pour your concrete if you don't care what it looks like. And then his wife's like, well, is there any other way we can mark them? I said, yeah, we could mark them. We could, put some lines in the floor or something to make sure that these things are clearly marked. And so he kind of calmed down a little bit about it, and he realized that we weren't going to do it the way that he was talking about pouring them separate like that. So we decided to mark them some other way. I said, I'll get them marked. And it's not going to be a concern at all. These things will be marked somehow. And I actually told him we could hang a plumb bob off the ceiling, a string with a plumb bob on it, right where they are, dead center, and then we could, leave the string there, and he could just hook the plumb bob up later. But he didn't like that idea either. So we kind of decided I'm going to pound some rebar stakes in there and mark them somehow during the pour. So when Chris, my buddy Chris, came to help us that morning, I told him about these pads and stuff, and he come up with a pretty good idea to put a grid of string lines in the pad here. So what we did was put a bunch of screws in, and we hooked string lines up. We made this big, huge string line. If you can envision it, we strung, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4. We strung 8 string lines, guys, so like a checkerboard across this thing. We left the screws in exactly where these pads were. So we did that. This took us, quite a bit of time to put all these screws in and run all these strings. And then we took all the strings down, and you could see when we poured the concrete, we left we stuck a couple of rebars in there just so we could keep track of them. That also helped us so we didn't step in those massive holes. You could kind of see that we had the rebar in there, so we could see where the holes were. And then what we did when we finished the concrete, we pulled the rebar out. But we had that string line grid, and so that was good. We knew exactly where they were, and I was going to mark them good. And I thought all was good with these lift pads. I thought, Chris had come up with a real good idea, and the homeowner would be good with that, but not the case. So stay with me. I'll jump back into that story after this little clip here. It's coming up because I'll let you see what we're doing here for a minute. You can see, guys, we're power screeding this whole thing. That's Chris on the power screed. Big Biscuit's bow floating right there. So we're just trying to get this concrete down here. And it's going pretty good. Everything went really good with the pour. We didn't have any issues. Wheelbarrow time, boys! Wheelbarrow time! So this section, you can see we had to wheel it, guys. You can see we used the conveyor for the back there. And then we got to this section, and the conveyor wouldn't really reach over here. So we got these big Brentwood wheelbarrows. I think we had 1, 2, 3. I think we had 3 of them that day. And this is how we run them. We're just kind of, these are dual wheel obviously, and we're just kind of running them back and forth. And they hold a lot of concrete, so you can put the concrete down pretty fast. So here I am, me, Chris, and Paul are gonna start leveling this out. And what I'm doing pretty much here, I'm puddling. You can see I got that rake in my hand, that flat rake. That's a come along, and I'm puddling the concrete, which is just leveling the concrete. But I also got a piece of plywood here, guys, that I'm moving that plywood around, as you can see, so that we don't dump on the tubing. We don't take that wheelbarrow, you know, with the sharp edge on it and lean it up against a piece of tubing and damage the tubing. So that's why we do it that way. So I kind of could have used 2 pieces of plywood here, but I had 1 and I was just moving it around. And that shows the guys where I want the concrete too. I don't even have to tell them. I just move the piece of plywood and they know where I want the next wheelbarrow to be dumped. So you can see we're just plugging along here, and that's how we did this section. There was a bunch of pipes here. As you can see, there's an office here in this corner, so there was a lot of plumbing and stuff. They added all this. I didn't really know it was going to be in there. They'd said there was going to be a few pipes, but no big deal on that. That we just worked around it. It wasn't a big deal at all. Makes it a little harder to screed it and stuff, but not a big deal. We had enough help that day, so that's how we did this section, guys, all the way over to where we can start shooting through that door to finish up is what we did. We ended up getting this whole section done, and then we just reached in, and you'll see here in a bit where we just reached through with the shoot right through the door. So let's go back to the pads, guys. I'll finish that story for you. So let me think of how it played out. So the homeowners came after we poured the slab here. After we had the concrete in, they showed up. And they were upset at me at the time. Not about the pads, because we hadn't finished the concrete. So evidently he thought I was going to either hand groove a 4-foot box around where the pads were. I was gonna like hand groove it, because we did talk about that, but I didn't totally like the idea. I didn't really want to ruin this floor. This was gonna look nice. I didn't want to have these weird big squares in the middle of his floor, and they weren't square with the walls or nothing there, because he's putting the posts kind of at an angle. He's putting his lift at an angle. So they weren't mad about that yet, because I think he still thought I was going to do that. I was going to either hand groove like a sidewalk groover, or cut a line at these 4-foot boxes, have these 2 ugly 4-foot squares cut into his floor, which I didn't want to do at all. But I told him I would clearly mark them somehow. So, but they were mad because we parked on the grass. He was really upset because we had parked our cars on the grass. But there's nowhere to park down in here. They had their driveway's a half a mile long, and we had to park somewhere. And there's just driveway, and then there's some grass, and it was really hard. There was no. We didn't do any damage to the grass. There was no, wasn't soft or anything. We didn't leave any tire tracks or nothing. So I didn't know what the big deal was there, but they were upset because we parked in the grass. And this is in the country too, guys. Usually it's okay to park in the grass. And like I said, we did 0 damage to anything, but I didn't know. I asked him where we were supposed to park, but he didn't really have an answer for me on that. So he was mad at me about that, so I was like, okay. And we moved on from that, I guess. So then after that, his wife was mad at me because one of the guys left a cigarette butt right by the door, the overhead door. There was a cigarette butt on the ground, And granted, we were still working. We had not cleaned up, so she was really mad because of that cigarette butt. And I told her that there would definitely not be anything laying on the ground when we left because we always do clean up our area. They didn't really give us a chance to clean up, and they're mad at me before we even had a chance to clean up. So, but that wasn't the end of the world. So I kind of apologized about the cigarette butt, and I said, like I said, we're gonna clean up everything before we leave. And we're shooting through the door, guys. Go back to the concrete here. This is how we finished up. But you're gonna see, I actually was short concrete here, guys. We run out right about here. No big deal. We kind of knew we were gonna need a balance anyways, but I was hoping I had enough concrete, but it wasn't a big deal because the plant's so close. So we'll talk about that here when I slow down the video. But no biggie. They just sent a balance over to us anyways to finish this off, and it stayed nice and soft. It was cool that day, so we didn't have to worry about a cold joint. But after this next clip, I'll go back into the lift story and finish up how that played out at the end. Guys, we're a little bit short on concrete here. A little over a yard, so I ordered 1.5 yards. Sometimes with the spray foam, it's hard to figure exactly how much concrete you need. We added some for those lifts posts, but maybe not enough. Those were big. They were like 1 yard each, so looking good. We'll get this. The concrete plant's only about 4 or 5 miles away, so we'll get this last truck in and fill this in, and we're gonna be about 39.5 yards, and I figured 38. So that's where we're at. Here's our little balance, guys. Little 1.5 yard balance. Somebody didn't figure the concrete out right. That'd be me. Still nice and soft though. Really soft still. No need to worry about a cold joint. The plant's really close. Oh, and you bring it nice and stiff. Attaboy. That's how I wanted it, nice and stiff. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. I hate when they bring a yard and it's like a 6 or something, or a 7 or 8, you know. Like, no! Nice and stiff, about a force lump right there, so it'll catch the rest of it. That's good mud right there, boys. Blend right in nice. So you can watch Biscuit here, bow floating, and I'll try to finish up this lift story. So we poured this on a Saturday, like I said in the video, guys. I came back Sunday to cut it, which was Father's Day. And the homeowner actually told me that she was going to pay us on Saturday for everything. You know, she was just going to pay us. She said she trusted that I was going to come back and cut it the next day, which I told him. So I was like, all right, good. That's fine, you know. I asked her if she wanted me to hold back a little bit. And she said no, she didn't want. She was just gonna pay me. So Saturday when they came and they were upset about the cigarette butt and the parking on the grass. Well, they didn't pay me. They gave me some money, but they didn't pay me up for the job, which they kind of said they would. So I was like, all right, kind of stunk because they couldn't meet me on Sunday. So that meant I had to come back here on a Monday just to get paid. So I didn't understand that when they said they were going to pay me the day that we poured. So, but no big deal on that. I wasn't too upset. I just said, well, I'll come back Monday and get the rest of the money. So I came back on Sunday, like I said, to cut it, and you could clearly see where the concrete was deeper. You could clearly see that where those lift posts were, the color was completely different, which you're gonna see in the video here in a little bit. Here's Chris power troweling, guys, and Paul's on the knee boards hitting the edges. We hand troweled this whole floor so they had a non-slip surface. But anyways, back to like I said, came back Sunday on Father's Day, cut the floor. I talked to her a little bit via text, the homeowner, and everything seemed to be good. She was happy that I came back and on Father's Day and cut it, and she was real nice in her text messages. Even said they were going to give me a little bit of extra because the pads were deeper, because I mentioned, we ate up a couple yards on the pads. But when I came back Monday and I had marked the pads, but I didn't cut them. I did not cut lines where the pads were, because I hooked all those string lines back up, and I had it clearly marked where they were, so I drew out where the lift was, and I put lift posts on it, and you'll see that in the video as well. And I thought we were good, and I even told her that maybe we could drill a little hole in the corners of these pads so you could see him. You maybe could put a little nail there or something. He could pull the nail out later and put his pads in. Alright guys, there it is. We got her all done. Gave them a nice hand troweled finish, which is not a super slippery finish. This is going to be a shop for them, so they did not want it super slippery. It's got a little office over here, radiant heat, spray foam, all 9 yards. Thanks for watching, guys. So here it is Sunday, guys, and I snapped my chalk lines over here. Here's these pads. You can clearly see them where they are. So I didn't feel it necessary to cut the lines where these pads were. I could have. And like I said, we had that string lines grid. You can see it. I set that up to get these lines in here. I set all those strings up and marked this thing out. But you can clearly see where it is just by the difference in the color. So I proceeded to cut all my lines. You'll see here in a second. And I showed up Monday to get the rest of the money from the lady, and she said that her husband was going to be really mad because we didn't cut the lines in it. She actually called him up, and he hung up the phone on her when she told him that we didn't cut the lines in, that we just had marked it. And that was it for me. I told her I did not want to work for her and her husband anymore. I said, get another mason. I didn't yell or nothing. I just said I was all done. So that's how that played out, guys. Let me know what you think.